Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I decided to just go ahead and post my video about Dylan Rounds. Several people did say when I did a poll asking should I wait for a response from Dylan's mother or anyone else in his family. And while several people did say yes, you should continue to wait, the majority of people said no, don't wait, go ahead and post the video. And after thinking about it for a little bit, I decided that I might as well just go ahead and post the video. Maybe if nothing else, maybe somebody from the family, maybe Candace, maybe someone else will see the video and they'll use the information that I have to say, hopefully. Now, I do want to point out to everyone that this vision that I had about Dylan Rounds, this vision was nowhere near as detailed as the vision that I had with Quentin. The small portion of it that I had, it was only maybe 2 to 3 minutes long. The 2 to 3 minutes that I had of what happened to Dylan was relatively detailed, but I don't have an extensive vision on this one. Okay, you guys, it was 2 to 3 minutes the first time, and then I saw another little bit, which was probably another, minute or two. Now, I also want everyone to understand that while my visions are only, sometimes they're only 2 to 3 minutes long, I see a lot of stuff in my visions. Like my visions, even if they're short, they're usually relatively detailed as far as what I see in the vision. When I say they're not detailed as far as length, I just mean, I don't have a big, long story to tell you about all these things that I saw. But my individual visions are, usually there's, I can see a fair amount of detail in those 2 to 3 minute visions. Also, I need to explain that I don't know if this happens with anybody else's visions, okay? And I know it's going to sound really weird, but this is what happens to me. Just because I take a long time to describe a 2 to 3 minute vision does not mean that the vision did not play out in 2 to 3 minutes. Because here's what you have to understand. What I can do with my visions is I can slow them down. I can watch my visions almost like I'm seeing them in slow motion. And that's how I am able to see so much detail, and that's how I'm able to describe things to you the way that I describe them to you, because I can slow it way down, and I can even back it up. And I wasn't always able to do that. It took me a very, very long time to learn how to do that. And it didn't happen until I had this one crazy lucid dream. And I will talk about that, the lucid dreaming, in another video. I'm going to make that one very soon. So I'll explain what I'm talking about with that. But ever since I had that dream, I have been able to do this with my visions. So when I give you guys a vision and I say, well, it was 2 to 3 minutes here and 2 to 3 minutes here, so all in all it was only about 6 minutes. That doesn't mean that it's only going to take me 6 minutes to describe it to you, because I see a lot of stuff, and I'm also a very observant person, so I look around and I look for clues and I look to see if I can find things that might help me understand what I'm seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this. I just want to say quickly that if anyone from Dylan's family is watching, I do not mean any disrespect to anyone. I don't want to cause anyone any pain. This is simply what I saw. At the end of the day, it's my opinion, and it's just what I feel and what I believe that I have seen. I mentioned in my other video about Dylan Rounds, my initial thoughts, that when I watched the first interview and I was listening to Candace first start to talk about Jim Brenner, that I got this little flash of this scruffy, unkempt looking dude that had a big bushy beard and fuzzy hair, right? And then I went out to Google and I found a picture of Jim Brenner, and sure enough, that was the guy that I was seeing. So in that initial little piece of my vision, I saw Brenner and Dylan struggling over something. I couldn't really tell what it was. It looked like they were standing in front of something, but once again, I couldn't really see anything other than the two people and that they both had a hold of something and they were struggling over it. So when I tried to go back farther, this is what I saw. Dylan backed his truck into the grain shed. Now, as he was backing his truck into the grain shed, Jim Brenner was already in the shed. If you're looking at the shed, like, standing in front of it and looking into it, I see Jim Brenner in the top right-hand corner. He is standing over there. He's hunched over. He's digging through things. I don't know what he's digging through. He's digging through stuff on the ground. It seems to me like he's looking for something. I can see a small pile of objects behind him. Dylan sees that Jim is in there in the shed digging around, and he gets out of the truck and he says, "Hey, Jim," or, something of that nature, and he walks towards the back of his truck. Well, Jim comes over to him immediately. He seems erratic. He seems like he's in a panic. He seems like he's kind of desperate for something. Like he's just found something out and now he's desperately trying to figure out what he's going to do to resolve whatever is going on in his world. He asks Dylan if he can borrow some money. He says, "Dylan, would you loan me some money for something?" I can't really understand what he's talking about. He needs to fix something about his water maybe. I can't really hear or understand what he's saying. And Dylan, I don't know his exact words, but basically what he's saying is, "I have some work you could do." Well, as soon as Dylan says that, Brenner just snaps. He gets very irate. He gets very angry. He says, "I've done plenty of work for you." And he's got this attitude like he feels slighted by Dylan. And Dylan says something along the lines of, "I've always paid you, Jim." And Brenner says, "Yeah, well, not enough." Like the words might not be exact. I actually can't hear a lot. I mostly see what they're saying. So I can tell that Brenner is just pissed. He is angry. He feels like Dylan should just give him some money right now because he needs it, and he's done plenty of work for Dylan in his opinion. Dylan's basically telling him, "I'm sorry, Jim, I'm not just going to give you some money, but I have plenty of work that you can do," that kind of a thing. And then Dylan goes to the side of his truck and he starts digging around in the back of his truck. I'm not sure if he's looking for something or if he's pushing around his seat or where. I don't really see inside the back of the truck very well. I do have to warn you guys that the vision does get kind of graphic. I won't describe any of the graphic things that I see, but just the actions really right now are going to get just a little bit graphic, okay, just to warn you. So Brenner goes over to his little pile and he picks something up, and he comes swinging at Dylan with it, and Dylan turns around just in time to stop him, just in time to grab the object and keep Brenner from hitting him with it. As they're struggling over it, now see, this is the part that I saw initially, was this struggle. At that point, I can see that what they're struggling over is a metal pipe. It's some kind of metal or steel pipe. I'm not sure what it's made out of, obviously. It's about 2 to 2.5 feet long. It's about 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. It's relatively large, and it's got threading on one end of the pipe. It might have threading on both ends of the pipe, but I can only see the end of the pipe that's at the top. So Dylan and Jim Brenner are struggling over this pipe. Brenner's trying to get it away from Dylan. Dylan's trying to get away from Brenner. They kind of wrestle with each other, still standing on their feet, towards the back of the truck. And then once they get near the tailgate, Dylan trips. He trips over something. He falls onto the ground. Now, he doesn't fall flat on the ground. He kind of falls back, with his legs out. He falls on his butt and, puts his hand back. Dylan goes to get back up, and as he's getting up, he's saying, "Jim, you don't have to do this. I'll give you some money." But before he can get all the way up to his feet, Brenner comes over and he just swings that pipe as hard as he can at Dylan. Dylan blocks it with his arm. He puts his arm up, and the pipe hits him square in the forearm. And Dylan says, "Jim, please stop." And the blow onto his arm, it, makes him fall back down on the ground. So now he's on the ground again. And once Dylan's on the ground, Brenner comes over and he just starts hitting Dylan. He just starts hitting Dylan with the pipe. Wherever he can hit him, if he can make contact with his head, he hits him. If he can make contact with his arm or his side, he hits him. He just keeps hitting him, you guys. He does not let up. He swings a good 3, 4, maybe 5 times. I don't know exactly how many times, but he just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting until finally Dylan stops moving. By that point, I see Dylan laying on the ground. He's laying on his side. I can see blood coming out of his head. It's not like gushing, but there's just, I can see blood on his forehead. I can see blood on the side of his hair. I can see blood running down his face. Now, the really messed up part is that I do not get the sense that Dylan is gone at that point. I do not get the sense that he has passed. I get the sense that, if Jim Brenner had come to his senses or had a moment of clarity and he had called medical attention, called emergency services, that there's a possibility that they would have been able to save Dylan. Now, I know this place is out in the middle of nowhere, so maybe it would have just been dumb on Brenner's part. Maybe they would have taken so long to get out there that Dylan would have been passed already. I don't know that. But all I feel is that at that point in time, Dylan is not gone. Brenner stands there and stares at him for a few seconds, and then he immediately starts searching Dylan for whatever he can find. He takes his keys, I think it's a wallet, and then he goes into the truck. He goes into Dylan's truck, and he starts digging through Dylan's truck, and he starts looking for anything that he can find in Dylan's truck. Now, at this point in time, I don't think that Jim Brenner is thinking even remotely rationally. Whatever he was trying to get money for, he is focused on that. And at the moment, when he's cleaning out Dylan's truck and everything, I think that he is looking for things of value that he could maybe quickly sell without any repercussions, without anybody questioning where those things came from. But I don't think he's taking everything, I see that Dylan's phone was in the truck. He took his phone and he's grabbing a whole bunch of stuff from the truck. At that point, I see Brenner run out of the shed. I don't know where he goes or what he does, but he takes everything that he took from Dylan and he runs out of the shed. And then he comes back. I don't know how much time has passed from the time that he last hit Dylan till the time that he runs out of the shed and then comes back in. I don't know how long that has been, but I feel like it's been a little while. It's only at that point that Brenner even bothers to check and see whether Dylan is still alive. And at that point, I do not feel like he is. I feel like Dylan has passed at that point. Now, I know that everybody probably knows all about Dylan's boots and everything like that, but this is the part where I see that. This is the part where I see him take Dylan's boots. And he does also take his hat. I know that there's been some speculation as to whether Jim Brenner had Dylan's hat, but I do believe that they had the same hat. And that the only reason that he took Dylan's hat is because he was thinking that when his wears out, he could just wear that one and that nobody would know the difference. But I don't know if he kept the hat. I don't know if he kept Dylan's hat. So whatever hat the police found or they tested or whatever, that might very well have been Jim Brenner's hat. But I did see him take Dylan's hat. I just don't know what he did with it. I do see that it's raining. I think it actually might have been raining already while they were struggling in the shed. But now at this point I see that it's raining pretty decently. And what I see is Brenner, he grabs some kind of a crate or a box or something like that, and he puts it in front of Dylan's truck at the front of the shed, and he sits on it. And he just sits there and waits. And I think that he's waiting for the rain to stop. And I don't see that he's done anything with Dylan's body. I see Dylan's still laying there back behind the truck. That's where that part of that vision, that's where that ends. I just see Jim Brenner sitting on a crate towards the front of the shed. And like I said, I believe that he's waiting for the rain to stop. Now, the next thing that I see, there's a huge break in this. It doesn't just continue on. And this actually does happen to me even when I have longer visions sometimes. It's not usually one continuous vision. Like with my Quentin Simon vision, that was not one continuous 40-minute long vision. That was several long visions that I was able to break and continue. I was able to stop and then pick up where I left off with that. So anyway, this was similar, but it didn't go in sequence. So I saw Brenner sitting there, and then the next thing that I see is, I'm assuming sometime later, I don't know how long later, but I see Jim Brenner driving Dylan's truck. And all I can see in that instance is just that he's driving his truck into this huge, barren-looking area. There's not really a lot to distinguish anything. I can't really tell what anything is. It's dark. And I see him, basically all I see is that he pulls the truck up and he stops. He turns off the lights. He gets out, he goes to the back of the truck, and he takes out some tools. It looks to me like it's a shovel and a pickaxe and a light. And then I just see him walking off to the left of the truck. So if you were looking down at the truck and you were looking at it so that the front of the truck was facing forward, like maybe if you were standing by the tailgate, then from the front driver's side corner of the truck, Jim Brenner walks with these tools and this light off to the left. And that's pretty much all I see. I know that Dylan's parents said that they had found during one of their searches, they had found some tire tracks into the wash. And I really honestly feel like that is the correct location. Wherever they found those tire tracks, they need to look. Whatever they can do to search that area, they need to look at that area really, really hard, because I really do feel like they're right. I feel like those tire tracks were from Brenner driving out there with Dylan's truck. And I do feel like if they go off to the left of those tracks, that somewhere in that area they're going to find something that sort of looks like kind of an embankment maybe, and they need to look in that area, because I feel like Dylan is in that area. Now, I know other people have said that they believe that maybe Dylan was put into some kind of abandoned mine shaft or something like that, and I don't know. Maybe that is what happened, but I don't feel that. I don't feel like he's in a mine shaft or in a hole or in some weird thing like that. I feel like he was buried, like he was put into the ground, and then more dirt or sediment, whatever, has kind of washed down over him. So anyway, I know that Dylan's family doesn't need me to tell him, tell them that they should be searching out in that area. I'm sure that they're well aware of that. What I really wanted them to know was I wanted them to know what I saw with Brenner actually attacking Dylan. Because I think that if someone asked Jim Brenner about the pipe, or if somebody asked him why he needed money, or if somebody asked him, if he was in an agitated state or something like that. I think if they asked him about the pipe, I think that he would get very, very nervous, because, he went in there and he cleaned out that shed right in front of, I don't know if it was law enforcement that was watching him or if it was a volunteer group, but his family had mentioned that somebody had to stand there and watch him clean out that shed. And I guarantee you guys that that pipe was in that stuff that he took out of that shed. Well, I don't guarantee it because, like I said, I might be wrong. But from what I see, he took that pipe out of that shed. So if they said something to him about the pipe, I think that he would freak out and think that they knew something legit and that he would just crack. So if anyone is listening to this that has anything to do with Dylan's case, please ask Jim Brenner about the pipe. Okay, so I don't want to drag this out too long. This is all that I saw. So you can ask me questions in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. But I think that I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up. As always, thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I will absolutely be talking to everyone again very, very soon. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.